I think it's clear to everyone that being a woman has historically been hard. Starting in ancient and medieval times, where women were punished for their own rapes and were complete property of men. Medium.com states that a man could beat, divorce, or even murder his wife for a variety of offenses, and no one saw any problem with that until the 1800s. Women have been beaten, raped, talked down upon, and generally mistreated for as long as the history books stretch back. If you look at a timeline, you'll realize that women gaining their rights has only been fairly recent, and women are still being stripped of their rights today. According to reproductiverights.org, abortion is protected by state law in 21 states, meaning that in the majority of the United States, a woman's right to an abortion is not protected. Abortion rights should be legal and protected across all 50 states. A woman's choice to have an abortion is within her rights as a citizen, and there are things we as a society must come to realize before taking a stand to fight for the rights of women. First, I'll talk about why many think abortion is wrong and why it's such a controversial topic. Next, I'll talk about the causes for this way of thinking and how abortions came about historically. Lastly, I'll talk about the things we as a society can do to fight for this womanly right. Abortion should be legal in all 50 states since it is a woman's right. The topic of abortion is so controversial, and no one can seem to agree on whether it should be legal or not for many different reasons. There's a good amount of pro-life arguments that stem from religious beliefs. The Catholic Bible teaches that life begins at conception. This means that the moment the sperm reaches the egg, the baby is alive. And one of the most remembered commandments of the 10 Commandments is, "You shall not kill." Catholics believe that life is a gift given by God, and it seems unthinkable to take it away in any circumstance. Most, if not all, religious groups are against abortion, and they are the ones very active in the politics of it all. The reasons against abortion are not only religious, but scientific as well. Scientifically, the cells that clump together and form at conception is seen as a living preborn baby with its own specific DNA. LiveAction.org claims that abortion is an act of violence against another human being, simply because that human being is deemed unwanted, an inconvenience, or disabled, or not conscious of his own life. The scientific side of the anti-abortion argument revolves around whether you view the early stages of conception as living or not. The pro-life argument on abortion is one that is very widespread because of these scientific and religious reasons. Now that I informed you on some of the arguments against abortion, I'll talk about what abortion actually means for women. The arguments against legalizing abortion are all focused on the well-being of the fetus. A woman's access to have an abortion is not about the fetus, it's about the woman and her rights. The legalization of abortion originated with a woman's right to privacy. Abortion was legalized in the United States in 1973 with the Roe v. Wade decision. According to dailyhistory.org, the Roe decision gave women autonomy over their pregnancies during the first trimester and allowed states to regulate or restrict abortions during the second and third trimester. This was something women fought for years, and with this decision, women were liberated with the ability to choose what to do with their own bodies. It stood for women's independence and equality. Recently, Roe v. Wade was overturned. The overturning of Roe v. Wade was something that had been argued since it was first passed. It was widely believed that this decision should have never been made, since it clashes with the Constitution. In some states, the overturning declared that no abortion should be done in any circumstance without approval. This put many women's lives at risk, since conditions like ectopic pregnancies require an abortion as a life-saving procedure for the mother. Without this procedure, these women suffer unnecessary complications like life-threatening internal bleeding and infection. Additionally, during the midterm elections this year, abortion was on the ballot in 5 different states. It was in 3 of those 5 states where the right to have an abortion was added to the state's constitution, the other 2 against restricting abortion access. According to CNN.com, voters rejected changing the state constitution to say it did not include a right to terminate a pregnancy. According to TheHill.com, California voted that the state cannot interfere with an individual's reproductive freedom. There are many people who believe a right to an abortion is a necessity, and there has been what seems like constant battle over this decision. Now that you know why abortions are so controversial and what this right to an abortion means in respect to a woman's freedom, I'll talk about what we as a society can try to do to keep this as a right and why we should. There are countless petitions to sign, organizations to donate to, and elections to vote on regarding abortions. It's important to know why abortion should be kept legal. A woman's right to have an abortion isn't about taking away a baby's life. It's about a woman's right to choose what she thinks is right for her body. A woman should be able to freely choose whether she wants to put her baby up for adoption, whether she's ready to keep and raise it, or if she doesn't want to go through the physical and mental tolls of having a baby. Not to mention that a woman should have access to a doctor who can legally perform abortions in a life-saving situation for the mother. Abortion access should be a right to women all across the country. To keep abortions legal, people need to physically put an effort out in showing their support. This could be done with elections that I'm certain will be held in the future. Since the midterm elections this year already passed, it's easy to find an organization to donate to or petition to sign for this cause. Abortions are part of a woman's right to her own body, and if we don't do anything about keeping it legal, this right will be taken away. A woman should have a right to make decisions about her own body, and this means keeping abortions legal. There are many things we as a society must do for all women to keep this right. Finally, to review, I first talked about the problem. I talked about how most anti-abortion arguments are in reference to the unborn baby, and I talked about how these arguments are both scientific and religious. Then I talked about how abortion was first legalized and how it liberated women. Abortions gave women autonomy over their own bodies and a right to make their own choices. I also talked about how recently it was taken away once again. Finally, I talked about why it's important to keep abortion legal for the sake of women and their freedom, and I mentioned ways we can continue to fight for this right. A woman has a right to choose what to do with her own body, and it should be no one's choice but her own. This should be a right that's protected nationally, and we have to fight for this right as much as we can. The right to an abortion has been a very relevant topic lately, and if it's not kept legal, it'll be a huge step backwards for women's liberation. Life for women has been historically difficult, and it still is. The choice to have an abortion is within a woman's right, and keeping this choice legal would make life for women immensely easier. Thank you.